Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much for joining today's session. My name is Sharif, and I'm very excited to welcome you to our webinar on funds and grants integration, that is budget check integration, a tool that we developed, and a topic that many of the finance and travel managers are all too familiar with. Managing travel expenses within a constrained, accountable budget framework, especially when you're operating with systems like SAP Concur and SAP ECC that aren't natively connected in this area. So we've worked with many organizations that use SAP Concur for travel planning and expense management. And many of them do use SAP ECC on-premise solutions for financial control and budgeting. And while both these systems are very powerful in their own right, there's always been a gap, and a gap that becomes obvious the moment a travel request is raised, right? So what actually is the need for a budget validation, right? One of the common challenges most of the firms face these days is when a travel request gets created and approved in SAP Concur, but there is no automatic validation to check if there's sufficient budget available in SAP ECC. Finance teams often find themselves trying to reconcile expenses after the fact, scrambling to correct overspent cost centers or manually reverse approved trips that were never budgeted. It's a reactive process, right? So there's a real risk for organizations focused on governance, compliance, and financial control. And clients have told us the same thing over and over again and again, that we need to make sure we are not committing to travel spend unless we know the budget is available. And we need that check to happen automatically without manual intervention. And this has been a dialogue that we keep hearing in most of our discussions. And that's exactly what we set out to solve when we developed our custom integration between SAP Concur and SAP ECC. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you the tool that came out of that journey, and we call it the budget check. In this session, I'll walk you through how budget check works, why it's a game changer for managing pre-travel budget control, and how you can leverage existing SAP Concur APIs and ECC functionalities to build a secure, scalable bridge between planning and finance. But first, let's take a moment to understand how significant this challenge is in a day-to-day operations and what happens when this is left unchecked and unaddressed. Our solution, budget check. At heart, budget check is a small integration. It's a smart integration layer built upon SAP's Concur standard API offerings. It allows us to perform our real-time budget validation during the travel request, ensuring that no request can proceed unless there's sufficient budget available in the backend system, right? Let me break it down and explain how it works step by step. Whenever a user initiates a travel request in SAP Concur, entering the trip details and estimated costs along with the fund structure, like selecting the cost center or internal order or WBS element or fund and functional area details. When they enter all the details and when they try to submit the request, that's when Concur triggers a webhook or an API call out to our custom middleware. This middleware acts as a bridge. It pulls the request details and initiates a fund reservation check in ECC using custom RFCs we've developed. Now, as soon as users click submit button after they finish creating their request report, our middleware brings the data submitted by the user into ECC to validate whether there's budget available under the specified cost center or the fund structure that is selected by the user. And if the funds are available, ECC creates a reservation to temporarily hold that amount. And if there is no fund available, if there is no budget available, Concur receives a failure response and notifies the user to revise the request or the funding. So when funds are available, what ECC does is ECC creates a fund reservation document. And that document number will be sent back to Concur and will be saved on the request submitted. And that number will be further used in future when the actual expense takes place and the user wants to submit the reimbursement reports. The data available in the request will be then transferred to the expense report, and this document number will be transferred for further usage. And if there is no fund available in ECC, ECC sends back an error message to Concur saying that there is no budget available in the selected cost structure. Please select a different structure. And all these interactions between ECC and Concur are tracked via audit trail for auditing and transparency. And the result of the solution is a successful reservation or rejection passed back to Concur in real time, guiding the users before the request proceeds to approval. We've designed this solution to be lightweight, secure, and scalable, and the integration layer is built with encrypted communication on OAuth 2.0 authentication for the Concur API. It also creates a full audit trail for transparency. This is not just an integration, guys. It's an operational safeguard that prevents overspending before it happens. These are some of the budget sample screenshots that gets created in your ECC system as soon as the report gets submitted in ECC. When the user submits the request report in Concur, the API callouts pick the data from Concur, fetch them to ECC using the details keyed in by the user. System checks for the availability of the budget. And if the budget is available, a similar document that you see on the screen gets created. And the document number that you see here on the screen, this number will be sent back to Concur. And this is a multi-layer upgradable document where if user intends to submit any changes in future for the document, user can do that too, and we can work on the basis of the requirement. Right. The technical highlights are basically we used available Concur APIs and SAP ECC RFCs to build our solution, taking leverage of SAP CPI and BTP solutions. And this entire solution is completely compliant with the security protocols of all the customers available globally. The impact and the result of this solution. Since implementing budget check, we've already seen clear benefits across the board. Requests are now only submitted if budget is confirmed, reducing rework and approvals based on incomplete data. Cost center managers have real-time visibility into budget usage, no surprises at the end of the month. Finance teams spend less time fixing issues and more time focusing on forward-looking planning. And the data is so accurate and real-time that the users see the data getting replicated to ECC on real-time and getting feedback as soon as they submit the buttons. And the audit trail improves internal compliance and reporting accuracy. And we've taken something that used to be a manual, reactive, prone to error process, and we've turned it into a streamlined, automated, controlled process that strengthens both governance and user experience. In conclusion, if your organization is currently using SAP Concur for travel and ECC for budgeting, and you're relying on manual checks or post-trip reconciliations, I encourage you to think about what a tool will look like budget check. I want you to think about what a tool like budget check could do for you. Budget check represents that perfect example of how API first thinking and smart integration can modernize legacy systems like SAP ECC. And we are connecting the power of SAP Concur's travel management capabilities and ECC's financial capabilities and the backbone of that finance power. And the solution adds the real value, ensuring your travel request is financially sound before it's approved. The solution is flexible and can be customized to your internal cost structures and workflows. And it's designed to work securely within your existing infrastructure. Whether you're in public sector, whether you're in oil and gas, education sector, telecom, and whatever is the sector, if you manage a structured budget, this kind of pre-validation is a game changer for your organizations. And that's what we are bringing onto the table. Thank you, guys. Thank you again for joining today's session. And we are happy to take any questions now. And if you'd like to explore budget check any further, you can reach out to David or me, and we can help you implement this in your environment. And we would love to connect for a one-on-one session after this.
And Sharif, we do have a couple of questions that came through.
Yeah.
So one of the questions is, to which versions of SAP is budget check compatible with?
That's a good question, David. And budget check solution, unlike the funds and grants management, funds and grants integration of Concur, our budget check is compatible with all versions of SAP before 2023, including SAP ECC and SAP S/4HANA public or private cloud. The solution which we built is we planned it in such a way that companies don't have to go through a huge cost of upgrading their ERP tool out of the box and subscribing to a new ERP solution, and they can stay on their old SAP ECC solutions and then get the necessary licenses of a Concur, and we can make sure that the integration will work as smooth as it can be.
Okay, and we have another question that came through. Let me read it out loud. Is, can budget check work with Concur expense alone?
Yes, team. Budget check can work along with Concur expense, but it would have certain constraints. Like, since expense is an after spend process, budget reservation would not happen, but it would still reserve the fund before the expense report gets approved and gets sent to finance system for payment. So how budget check will work with expense standalone is that it will ensure that payment is funds are available for payment purposes, and then the workflow process will take place, and finally it will confirm the availability of the funds for payments and submission for the finance system. Yes.
Okay, very good. And then we have another question from another participant. How many fund reservation documents in SAP can we create per expense report in Concur?
That's a good question, David. To explain it a little further, the process within Concur is a one-on-one matching of one request to one expense report. It's an advisable, it's a short advice that we try to give to our customers, that if you have a single request mapped to a single expense report, it will always be easier to audit your entire travel. In the similar way, every request and expense report is always advised to be associated to a single fund reservation document in ECC. In that way, what will happen is, when a budget document gets created, a fund reservation documents get created in ECC, that document number will be sent back to Concur, and then Concur will share that number with further expense report. So one expense report will be associated to one request report, and then it will be associated to one fund reservation report in ECC. That way, there will always be a one-to-one match between ECC and Concur for auditing and data tracking purposes.
Okay, and we do have another question that came in is, will the fund reservation be reversed and expense document created when the trip is finalized?
Can you repeat the question again, David?
Sure. It says, this is from the participant. It says, will the fund reservation be reversed and
Mm-hmm.
expense document created when trip is finalized?
Well, the trip is finalized, as in if the trip is cancelled, is that what they mean?
Well, when the fund, it says here, when the fund reservation is reversed
Mm-hmm.
and expense document created when
Mm-hmm.
trip is finalized. If it's
Finalized.
something that we need to take back, we can take it back and we can send you the email. If you don't know that response right off the top of your head, that's okay.
Ideally, David, I mean, let me try to answer it the way I understand that now. Can a budget document can be reversed? So most of the ideal situations is when a request report is submitted and no further action is taken, we can customize the solution to ensure the budget document gets released within a stipulated period of time, maybe let's say 30 days, if no action is taken. That is, if no further expense reports are submitted for that particular reserved fund, we can configure our tool to release the fund reservation that has been, the funds that have been reserved for that trip, they can be released and they can further be used for future trips. And Concur does have an option of canceling an approved request as well. So you can open an approved request. That is, you submit a request for a future travel and your travel gets approved and the budget is reserved. But for some reason, your trip gets canceled. You can click the cancel button on the trip, and that would trigger an action in ECC to release the fund. Similarly, there are multiple actions in Concur that can trigger change in ECC as well. That we can explore when we can have a conversation further. We can bring our technical team into the call as well, and we can discuss further on what kind of an expectation there is. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Very well. Yep. And then we can follow up with any of those types of answers to those questions. And I
Yes.
do, as you were explaining that, we had one more question that came in. I think that's going to be the last one.
Mhm.
There might be another one. How can we keep track of the fund reservation documents against the expense reports in both the systems?
Okay. So in Concur, every request and expense report gets the fund reservation document number back from ECC. From a processor view, that number will be visible against all the reports. So if the users are familiar, there is a role called the expense processor and the request processor role that can be assigned to a dedicated finance user. And that user will get the master view of all the expense and request reports submitted by all the users in the firm. And that screen will give you access to view the fund reservation document number against the report that is submitted. Similarly, ECC also has a page where every request and every expense report that it receives for finance posting or for budget check process, that report will contain the request ID from Concur as well as the budget reservation document number that was created in ECC. So that one-on-one matching between expense report to fund reservation and request report to fund reservation is available in both Concur as well as ECC.
Okay. All right. Very well. That closes all the questions. Yes, there's no more questions. So I want to thank everyone for your time today. We appreciate it. And what we do at the conclusion of this, I will go ahead and have this recorded and I'll follow up with emails to everyone with the PowerPoint presentation, and we'll let you know what's on the roadmap for the next reoccurring Concur webinars. So we appreciate the time and thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day. Thank you.